I am Nikhil Kumar. I am posted as professor in the Department of English of Veer Kunwar Singh University, Ara, in Bihar, in India. Today I wish to discuss catharsis in tragedy towards Sri Aurobindo's supramental evolution. Tragedy is the word which is commonly known. All of us know that tragedy is a story which ends with a sad note. But when we enter into the world of literature, it is not so. I mean that it is not the very ordinary concept is totally annulled in tragedy. It is true that in the world of literature, a story or a tragedy is a story which ends with a sad note. But all these sad ending stories are not categorized as tragedy in the world of literature. The well-known Greek philosopher Aristotle has given us a concept of tragedy. And when we look into the world of a sad story, I mean a story which ends with a sad note, in the light of Aristotle's concept of tragedy, we find certain features which are essential in a sad ending stories to be called tragedy. Aristotle has given several features of tragedies such as catharsis, hamartia. Catharsis is the purgation. It is the purgation of the emotion of pity and fear. Hamartia is a flaw in the character of the hero of the tragedy. Here we shall concentrate on the issue of catharsis. It is because of the catharsis, that is to say, the purgation of the emotion of pity and fears, that a sad story, I mean to say, a sad ending story comes to be a tragedy. And it is because of this catharsis that even though the end is sad, there is a relief in tragedy, and that is called tragic relief or comic relief. In the absence of such purgation of the pity and fear, the sad ending story comes to be a pessimistic story. Now let us think over the issue of this purgation, that is to say, the cleansing of the emotion of pity and fear. The question is as to why there is the emotion of the pity and fear when we study a tragedy or when we witness a tragedy which is staged. So such an emotion of pity and fear arises when we go to examine deeply. We find that human mind is a divided consciousness, and it is such a divided consciousness which is under the gravitational pull of the separativity of consciousness. The very purgation will take place when there is the evolution of consciousness to a higher plane where the particular plane of consciousness gets rid of the emotion of pity and fear. There is a plane in the hierarchy of the mental consciousness which is called spiritual consciousness, and it is spiritual consciousness because here we have the realization of the existence of pity, realization of the existence of one divine. Actually, one divine exists on its transcendent plane, but it is on the plane of spiritual mind where we begin to have the realization of the existence of one divine. So, on an overhead view of all these facts, the basic issue is the evolution of consciousness to its spiritual and supramental planes. Supramental plane is the plane of the one transcendent divine plane of consciousness. It exists prior to the creation, it exists beyond the plane of creation. Such a supramental consciousness exists beyond the plane of creation, and it is integral in nature. So the vision of this one transcendent divine begins to descend on the plane of spiritual consciousness. So the purgation of pity and fear totally depends upon the evolution of consciousness. When we speak of Sri Aurobindo's discovery of supramental consciousness, we find mainly the three yogas. The yoga of what we call the soul transformation of body, life and mind, of which we are made up of, at the center of which there exists the divine self. This is the yoga of soul transformation or psychicization of these three constituent parts of beings which are perishable in the event of death. There are planes of spiritual consciousness existing above the plane of intellectual mind, and beyond that the plane of mind ends. That is to say, mind is the divisive principle of the one transcendent integral consciousness. And after ascending the planes of the spiritual mind consciousness, we enter into the world of supramental consciousness, which is a new order of existence, which is a new order of consciousness, and a new race will be established on the earth, which Sri Aurobindo calls the supramental race. And in order to ascend to these spiritual and supramental planes, we are required to undergo what Sri Aurobindo terms the psychicization of body, life and mind. That is to say, the soul transformation of body, life and mind. Sri Aurobindo discovers that divine self exists in its two poises within man's being. One central poise is what he calls the Jivatma, and there is a projection of it, not in our three-dimensional vision. It is a projection, that is to say, it is a spark or it is a ray of the central being Jivatma in us, which is instrumental in our spiritual evolution. So this psychic being exists behind the body, life and mind, and it is required to come in the front and take over the command of the being of body, life and mind, so that the separative consciousnesses of body, life and mind could not clash with one another. They are required to be taken over by this psychic being, which is a projection of the Jivatma, the divine self. The divine self is the individual poise of the one transcendent supramental divine in our being. So, if when this psychic transformation of mind takes place, and we ascend the plane of spiritual consciousness, there is no separative pull or of the separativity of consciousness in these three beings, body, life and mind. There is nothing like that. So, in the light of Sri Aurobindo's supramental evolution, when we examine the principal tragedies of Shakespeare, we find an evolutionary change of consciousness in the heroes. This thing we find in Othello, this thing we find in Lear, in Macbeth also. So, at the end of the tragedy, in Othello, I mean the drama Othello, at the end of this drama, we find that the hero of the drama Othello, there takes place an evolutionary change of consciousness, and this evolutionary change of consciousness, it's towards this psychicization of the body, life and mind of Othello, so that a receptivity to the divine, transcendent divine could take place. So this is what we find at the end of Othello. And this very evolutionary change of consciousness is the relief in tragedy, which makes it quite different from a pessimistic story which also ends with a sad note. So this is what we find in Othello. The same thing we find in Lear. There is also an evolutionary change of consciousness in Lear. So such an evolutionary change of consciousness is exactly the same which we find in Othello. So this is nothing but the evolution of what Aristotle calls catharsis. This catharsis evolves, moves evolutionary towards this psychicization, which is the foundation of the triple transformation of man, which is the foundation of the integral transformation of man. So, this catharsis evolves into such an evolutionary change of consciousness. When we come to the drama Macbeth and enter into the inner recesses of the mind of Macbeth, we find an evolutionary change of consciousness in him also. In the Act 5 of the drama, there is a famous speech of him in which he says that life is but a walking shadow. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Shakespeare has been recognized as the greatest dramatist, and by greatest dramatist it means that he has written from a very high plane of consciousness, and even certain punctuation marks in the sentences are of great importance. What to talk of the full sentence? So when we analyze his line, that life is but a walking shadow, it clearly means that Macbeth, or to say Shakespeare, is aware of the something transcendent of which life is a shadow, and it will continue to be a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury till we evolutionarily ascend to that plane of transcendent and have that transcendent consciousness and live this life. So, this very idea is exactly the same idea which we find in the special relativity of the most celebrated scientist Einstein. Einstein says that this three-dimensional world is a projection of four-dimensional world, exactly in the same manner in which a shadow is a two-dimensional projection of three-dimensional world. So, two-dimensional world is a projection of three-dimensional world, and now the three-dimensional world is also a projection of four-dimensional world. So, the three-dimensional world comes to be a shadow. So, such a realization within the inner being of Macbeth that this life is a projection of some higher transcendent truth very clearly manifests that he has undergone an evolutionary change of consciousness, and such an evolutionary change of consciousness is in fact the evolution of catharsis in Shakespeare's principal tragedy. We must note here, or we must realize here, that Aristotle is a philosopher, he is a thinker. He is not a tragedian like Shakespeare, not at all a tragedian. Aristotle is not a tragedian, he is not an artist. Sri Aurobindo has called him a seer of the truth. So, whatever Shakespeare has portrayed in his drama is a matter of much higher consciousness than the consciousness of Aristotle. So, what Shakespeare visualizes is an evolved vision of Aristotle's vision. So, this catharsis comes to evolve to the plane of this evolutionary change of consciousness, and after this evolutionary change of consciousness, there will further be an evolutionary transformation such as psychic transformation of body, life and mind, spiritual transformation of body, life and mind, and finally the supramental transformation of life. So now we come to the other drama, Hamlet. From the point of view of the evolution of consciousness, I have taken up Hamlet at the end. Generally, Hamlet is discussed first, but here I have chosen to discuss Hamlet at the end. In fact, Hamlet is different from other three dramas. The evolutionary change of consciousness doesn't take place in him, it takes place in his mother Gertrude. It is because Hamlet manifests such a higher plane of consciousness for the attainment of which Othello, Lear and Macbeth have undergone evolutionary change of consciousness. We have a famous speech of Hamlet in which he claims that his love to his beloved Ophelia cannot be compared with the love of the 40,000 brothers of Ophelia. Ordinarily, a conjugal love is not at all compared with the love of a brother to his sister or vice versa. I am using the love of Othello for Cordelia as conjugal. Somebody may object it because there was no marriage between Hamlet and Ophelia, but if we see from the spiritual point of view, they had the same consciousness, the consciousness of a husband and wife, lover and beloved. So I can use the word conjugal love. So generally no comparison is made. But what is the reason that Shakespeare has compared his conjugal love with the love of a brother to his sister? In fact, there is a supramental connotation here. Means there is an transcendent integral connotation here. Hamlet's love manifests the love of that transcendent consciousness out of which different streams of human love have come into existence. So here Hamlet manifests a higher consciousness. So there is no question of evolutionary change of consciousness. Hamlet's mother connives with Hamlet's uncle to kill Hamlet's father. The very consciousness of Hamlet's mother, Gertrude, manifests the consciousness of a lower plane, since she takes part in the conspiracy with Hamlet's uncle to kill her husband. Her consciousness is required to evolve to a higher plane of consciousness. And Shakespeare shows that her consciousness has finally undergone evolutionary change. It is a different issue as to why the evolutionary change of consciousness is not shown by Shakespeare in the hero Hamlet of the drama Hamlet, whereas in other three principal tragedies the evolutionary change of consciousness takes place in them. It's a different matter. It's a matter to be discussed as a different topic, different subject. But so far as the evolutionary change of consciousness is there, this is what we find in Hamlet, also in the drama Hamlet. So due to this evolutionary change of consciousness in the drama Hamlet, we find a relief. This very relief promises a better tomorrow, which differentiates it from a pessimistic story which also ends with a sad note. So when we make an overall assessment of all these things which we have discussed, right from the purgation of the emotion of the pity and fear up to this evolutionary change of consciousness towards spiritual and supramental planes, we find that Aristotle's catharsis has evolved into Sri Aurobindo's supramental evolution. That's all. Thank you very much.